Imagine stepping into a medieval marketplace. The air hums with noise. Merchants shouting, horses clattering over cobblestone. The distant toll of a church bell. But beneath the smell of tanned leather, sweat, and smoke, there's something else. Something enchanting. A whisper of cinnamon, the sharp bite of pepper, the soft warmth of clove. That aroma meant power. It meant wealth. And for centuries, it drove kings, explorers, and empires to risk everything. Because in the medieval world, a single pouch of spice could change your destiny. Long before sugar or chocolate were common delights, spices were the world's greatest treasure. In Europe, winters were long and food preservation was brutal. Salt, smoke, and vinegar. Spices were the miracle that transformed survival into luxury. They didn't just season food, they covered rot, treated sickness, and announced status. To own spices was to own prestige. They were traded like gold, guarded like secrets, and fought over like territory. Pepper was the first to dominate this empire of flavor. Grown on the lush Malabar coast of India, pepper was known as black gold. Caravans carried it across deserts through Baghdad to the ports of Venice, where it was sold to the elite at staggering prices. A pound of pepper could buy a sheep, a chest could buy land. Nobles stored it in locked chests, and city officials collected rent in peppercorns. Even Rome had called it tribute. When the city was besieged by the Visigoths, part of the ransom demanded was 3,000 pounds of pepper. It wasn't just a taste, it was a symbol of power, proof that you were connected to the wealth of the East. But the medieval craving for spice wasn't just about pepper. There was cinnamon, mysterious, fragrant, and wrapped in myth. For centuries, Europeans didn't know where it came from. Traders claimed it was harvested from nests of giant birds that built high in unreachable cliffs. Another tale said it grew in deep valleys guarded by serpents. The truth was far less magical but just as exotic. Cinnamon came from the bark of trees in Ceylon and India. The Arabs who controlled the trade spread these myths deliberately, keeping competitors ignorant while they set the prices sky high. A single pound could cost more than a worker earned in months. Monarchs used it to perfume rooms and flavor wine, while physicians prescribed it for fever, digestion, and even melancholy. In the medieval imagination, cinnamon wasn't just a spice. It was medicine, mystery, and miracle combined. Then came cloves. Small brown buds shaped like tiny nails, so aromatic they could perfume an entire hall. They came from the remote Moluccan Islands in Indonesia, thousands of miles from Europe. No one outside the region even knew where they grew, and that secret kept their value astronomical. When ships full of cloves docked in Venice, people said you could smell them before you saw the masts. Cloves were believed to cure everything from toothaches to plague. Some nobles carried them sewn into their robes to mask the odors of unwashed court life. They were not just symbols of taste but of refinement, proof that you belonged to a world far beyond the medieval horizon. But there was one spice rarer, costlier, and deadlier to control than all the rest: nutmeg, the forbidden fruit of the Spice Islands. For centuries, no European even knew where it grew. Traders spun tales of lands guarded by spirits and monsters, of islands that vanished into mist. The reality was the Banda Islands, tiny specks in the Indonesian Sea, whose volcanic soil produced nutmeg trees found nowhere else on Earth. And that isolation made nutmeg the most valuable substance in the medieval world. During the 14th century, nutmeg was believed to be a gift from heaven. It flavored meat, preserved food, soothed stomachs, and most importantly, it was thought to protect against the Black Death. When plague swept through Europe, people stuffed nutmeg in amulets, burned it in homes, and ground it into every meal they could afford. A few seeds could sell for the price of a cow. A pound could buy you a plot of land. And when a plague survivor was seen carrying nutmeg, others followed, desperate for hope, for life, for something that smelled like survival. This obsession reshaped the world. The Portuguese were the first to reach India by sea, led by Vasco da Gama in 1498. But they weren't satisfied with pepper. They wanted the secret islands of nutmeg and clove. When they finally found them, they fought to control every grain. Soon the Dutch followed, building an empire of spice with brutal precision. They enslaved local islanders, burned rival trees, and destroyed entire villages to keep prices high. At one point, to maintain their monopoly, they even drenched nutmeg trees in lime to kill them, ensuring no one else could profit. The violence of the spice trade became legend. The Banda Massacre of 1621 wiped out nearly the entire native population. For the Dutch East India Company, nutmeg wasn't food, it was strategy. Whoever controlled nutmeg controlled the global market. So vital was this control that when the British captured the small nutmeg-producing island of Run, the Dutch offered them a trade the British would give up Run in exchange for another island across the world, Manhattan. Yes, the place that became New York City was once swapped for a nutmeg island. That's how valuable this spice was. A single cargo ship returning to Europe could pay for a nation's war. A barrel of nutmeg could finance a king's ambition. The air roots of trade, the birth of colonialism, the rise of European empires, all found their roots in the quest for spice. Every explorer you've heard of, from Columbus to Magellan, was chasing these same invisible fragrances across the horizon. When Columbus sailed west, he was looking for the Indies, for the islands of spice. He died never realizing he had found a new world instead. But as centuries passed, the monopoly crumbled. Smugglers stole seeds, plantations spread, and the mystery of the East slowly became industry. Once spices filled the cellars of kings, now they filled the cupboards of common homes. The value collapsed, but the legacy remained. Nutmeg, cinnamon, pepper, and clove had done more than flavor food. They had flavored history. They built fortunes, destroyed civilizations, and linked continents in a network of greed and curiosity that defined the medieval world. Even today, when you sprinkle a bit of nutmeg on dessert or stir cinnamon into coffee, you're touching the echoes of that age. A time when a pinch of powder could change the fate of empires, when sailors braved unknown seas not for glory, but for scent. The medieval world's most valuable spice wasn't just a taste. It was a dream, an illusion of power so strong that men traded lives for it. So which was the most valuable spice in the medieval world? The answer, without question, is nutmeg, a seed that rewrote global history.